Well, the X series is over, so that means no more storyline, no more Lars, and definitely no more emotionless dialogue. So seeing as last time we finished looking at the Resident Evil movie, let's reboot for a second and take a look at 1996's Resident Evil video game for the Sony Playstation. So Resident Evil's claim to fame is that it revolutionized the survival horror genre for the late 90s and early 2000s, so for the lack of a better segue, let's see how that came to be. With horror games like Alone in the Dark being heralded as the pinnacle of horror games, Resident Evil series creator Shinji Mikami was sent by Capcom to remake an earlier Capcom IP called Sweet Home, a psychological horror game that bears a similar setting to Resident Evil, i.e. the Spencer Mansion. How this game went from a Sweet Home remake to Resident Evil is anybody's guess. Initially, there were other unused characters that unfortunately never saw the light of day, such as Dewey, an African-American dude intended for comic relief, and Gelzer, a cyborg strongman for the team. Both of these characters eventually became the basis for the design of Rebecca Chambers and Barry Burton. Well, the last thing to really note here is the name change from Biohazard to Resident Evil. In Japan, the franchise is called Biohazard due to themes of biological weaponry. However, due to pressure from a New York punk band under the same name, the franchise was localized everywhere else as Resident Evil. And so, with a new name and style, Resident Evil was born. But does it still hold up as the grandfather of all modern survival horror games? Let's take a dive into that world of survival horror and find out.
Resident Evil.
So with the main menu, you'll have a choice of either selecting Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield as your playable characters, and much like in my Enter the Matrix review, the story will differ in slightly different ways depending on who you play as. Whichever character you choose will also determine your partner for the game. If you choose Chris, you'll have Rebecca, but if you choose Jill, you'll get the excellence that is Barry Burton. Anyway, we kick off with a narration from Chris telling us about the gruesome murders that are occurring in the Oakley Mountains.
Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten.
Poor guys. Must have been forced to play Operation Raccoon City. Upon pissing around the forest for Bravo Team, STAR's Alpha Team member Joseph Frost comes across a horrific discovery. My god, a fake hand! Damn it, Richard. Suddenly though, Joseph gets mauled by a bunch of fake-looking puppets with spaghetti sauce spilled over them. Is that really the best they can do? I mean, I know it's an FMV cutscene, only just exiting the era of old SEGA CD games, but come on, man. I can make a better prop out of tomato sauce than a dirty sock. I know, Joseph, I vaguely care about you.
No! Don't go!
Damn, if only we didn't leave the guy nicknamed Chicken Heart in the helicopter. Oh, wait a minute. So the team run away and head for the Spencer Mansion, and depending on who you play as, you'll either lose Chris or Barry in the process. And now it's time for Scully's fun fact of the week. Did you know that the Spencer Mansion was based on the Overlook Hotel from Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining? Yeah, it's a pointless bit of trivia, but come on man, you gotta learn something throughout all this.
What is this? Wow, what a mansion!
Captain Wesker, where's Chris?
And this is around the point where you'll notice that these voice performances are like totally bogus. Many people will criticize it for being bad, but personally, I think it adds a bit of charm to the game as it comes off as unintentionally hilarious, especially with Barry Burton.
I'm going with you. Chris is our old partner, you know.
Please. Let me assure you that I have previous work experience with Christopher Redfield, no doubt assuring to you that I have a personal stake in this, and can no doubt accompany you in your search for Mr. Redfield. Although seriously though, was that really necessary for us to know?
Stay alert!
Well, that was abrupt. So Jill and Barry then head off to check out the dining hall. Also, an unintentionally hilarious moment in 3, 2, 1.
Hope this is not Chris's blood.
Now, I don't want you to think that I'm one of those fans that just obsess over Barry because of a hammy voice performance, because, I mean, just think about it. I mean, like, if you gave him a voice like this, it really wouldn't have the same effect. So Barry puts himself to good use by admiring the fine craftsmanship of the fireplace, while Jill steps out for a cigarette before hearing a noise. Dude, Billy Corgan, like, totally needs to take better care of himself, man. So, doing what anybody would do in that situation, Jill runs away while Barry takes the dude out with a magnum. Dude, that thing's really powerful. Especially against living things.
What is it?
Kenneth was killed too. Maybe by this creature.
Maybe he was eaten by this— Dude, you totally saw him get eaten, man! As they return to the main hall, they then discover that Wesker is nowhere to be found.
Now it's Wesker's time to disappear.
So it's at this point where Jill and Barry decide to split up and search the mansion for any survivors, and across your journey you might just be lucky enough to find this.
Hurry! That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Oh wait, you guys are still here after that? As Jill progresses through the game, she'll eventually come across documents about how the experiments with the T-virus have gone loco, and how it's pretty much infected all the staff that worked there. You see, the movie isn't that different after all now, is it? While goofing off in the guardhouse, Jill will eventually come across Wesker again.
Where on earth have you been? You disappeared from the hall all of a sudden.
I'm sorry, but I have my reasons. Now, there are a lot of rooms in that mansion that we can't get into because they're locked up. I have been looking around for clues.
Okay, I'll go to the other house and see if I can find any clues.
Will you do that? I'm counting on you.
Dude, you could like totally not make your intentions any more obvious. So Jill, blissfully unaware, makes her way back to the mansion, kills a giant snake, and then discovers a hole. Whoa, that was unintentionally phallic.
How about going down to check by yourself? I have a rope here.
Oh, do you? Well, then I'll try to go down using the rope.
Great Cliff Burton's ghost, Jill. You certainly have a knack for pointing out the painfully obvious. Upon entering the hole, Barry done goofs by dropping the rope.
Now I've done it.
Oh, what a moron! Am I right? Find the computer room!
Now despite that rather confusing scene, you will eventually reunite with Barry, and both of you will then discover Bravo Team Captain Enrico. And this guy's only famous for one line.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, Barry and Jill together.
Enrico, don't give the fanbase any more ideas, man. So James Hetfield here tells us that someone inside STARS is trying to kill them.
The stars are doomed. Someone is a traitor. Everything was plotted from the start by Umbrella. Ha!
You know, I'm starting to think that she was a little bit pissed off at Joseph for eating the last Jill sandwich, because there was a slight bit more emotion in that than there ever was with this clip.
Joseph!
So our heroes travel beneath the mansion into the labs, where they discover that Wesker was the mastermind all along.
You did a fine job, Barry.
Just as I thought.
I think you should stay away from Barry, Jill. I hear that his wife and 2 daughters will be in danger if he doesn't do everything I tell him to.
Dude, you like don't even want to know the punishment he had lined up for him. I mean, playing Resident Evil Survivor is just too cruel.
Well, you don't have to worry about anything, because you'll be free from this world very soon, Jill.
You know, in comparing Wesker that we have now to his hammy performance here, it's kind of jarring, actually. So just as Wesker is about to show Jill his ultimate life form, suddenly Barry...
Do you think we could see Tyrant now?
Barry, you're so optimistic.
Dude, like, what part of that statement was optimistic? So the two enter the lab and see the Tyrant in all its fake FMV glory. Seriously, dude, the in-game graphics don't look this bad.
Can a creature like this really be the ultimate biological weapon?
Really? Wesker is a crazy man.
Tyrant is not completely developed.
Hey, I have feelings too, you know.
But we can't let it live.
Whoa, that's a little extreme.
That must be the computer for monitoring this creature.
The Konami code? That's going too far.
Damn you!
I think you mean...
Damn you!
After a quick boss battle with the Tyrant, Jill and Barry then head off. Although, if you search around the base a little bit more, you might be lucky enough to find this.
Oh, Jill!
Oh, Chris! So you're okay?
Yeah, you too!
Awkward romance. Aww. But we can't have any sexy time just yet, as it seems that Wesker has activated the self-destruct system. So Jill heads up to the roof so she can signal Chicken Heart to pick them all up. Okay, that didn't happen, but you do instead get this. Round 2. Fight! Jill wins! Fatality! And so our team escapes without leaving anybody behind.
Chris!
Yep, nobody at all. So with that said, let's take a look at the gameplay. Regardless of who you choose to play as, the basic control scheme for each character remains the same. Which in Resident Evil is finicky as all hell because this game uses tank controls. You can move Jill with the D-pad, and depending on which button you press, she will only turn in that direction. For example, if you push right, she'll turn to the right, but if you push left, she'll turn to the left. Some try to excuse these sluggish controls to say that it adds fear, but let's be realistic here, man. Bad controls are still bad controls, no matter how you try to spin the matter. I mean, in a normal situation, I doubt that anybody would react like this. Beep, beep. I am a robot. R2-D2, where are you? As for your attacks, you can equip several weapons that you will find throughout the game, such as pistols, shotguns, grenade launchers, and all sorts of weapons. You can use these weapons by holding down R1 and pressing the X button to fire. When holding down R1, you can aim your weapon in 3 directions, up, down, and center. Although I'd only ever recommend firing your gun upwards when a zombie is close enough so that you could pull off a headshot to kill him quickly. And that leads into my next point, ammunition. If you're gonna run into Resident Evil or trigger happy just shooting everything that moves, prepare to die pretty quickly, man. When going up against zombies in this game, your best option is usually just to make like Robert Trujillo and sand crab your way out of there. Because trust me dude, you're totally gonna need that ammo. In terms of enemies, this game has your average Romero zombie, hunters, Cerberus dogs, giant spiders, and sharks. Zombies are no problem by any means, so taking them out is kinda pointless unless of course a room is either overflooded with them or you're cornered by them. The same thing would also apply to dogs and spiders, but the hunters have a really deadly one-hit kill move where they can just jump up and decapitate you, so it's in your best interest to take them out if they're in an area you need to get to. As for bosses, this game has 3, a giant snake, a giant tentacle plant, and the Tyrant. The giant snake can be pretty easy just as long as you keep on the move, and likewise with the giant plant. However, the Tyrant being the final boss can pack one hell of a punch, so keep on your toes, dude. Now seeing as the Sony Playstation had a save feature, you'd be thinking, nah, well this game ain't so tough. Well if you thought ammo was scarce, guess what else is? Ink ribbons. Yeah, that's right, you're even limited to how many times you can save your game. Whoa, dude, like, the 90s were way hardcore, man. As for health items, you don't pick up medkits or health packs scattered across the mansion, although you do gain access to a new form of health pickup. Weed. Well, okay, technically they're called herbs, but come on man, that's totally weed.
Jill, what's going on?
Puzzles in the game often revolve around collecting a certain item and placing it somewhere so that you can gain another item which could play an important part in the puzzle later on in the game. However, that's not to say that all puzzles are like this, as there are many puzzles that also revolve around playing minigames. Whether it's mixing chemicals or computer hacking, these puzzles are really few and far between and not too memorable. Well, except for this one. Alright! Now, although control-wise Chris and Jill remain the exact same, the two do differ in some aspects. As for Chris, he has a stronger resilience to attacks and a higher headshot ratio than Jill. Sweet, huh? Well, not quite, as this comes at the expense of having 6 item spaces on his person. As for Jill, while not as strong as Chris, she does have a lockpick which can be used to open drawers and some doors, while Chris has to rely on a small key. However, what gives Jill the advantage here is that while Chris's small key takes up an entire item space, Jill's lockpick has its own slot as well as 8 additional item spaces. Now that is what I call the master of unlocking. And on that note, there's only one last gameplay element left to talk about, and that would be the dimensional warp hole that is the item box. Now, given all the tension of zombies trying to eat that pink fleshy grey matter in your skull, I guess Capcom thought that implementing a realistic storage system in the game would be way too cruel. Shame they weren't feeling so merciful when they decided to implement this into the GameCube remake. Regardless of which specific box you place your items in, if you see a similar looking box in a safe room, your items will always be right there waiting for you. So now that the gameplay elements are out of the way, one more thing still remains: the presentation. The graphical style at the time was probably breathtaking, but as of today, it just looks like a polygonal mess. And as for the FMVs, they are something that the series would quickly abandon after this game. As for the voice acting, it's pretty self-explanatory, but while bad, it is still funny in an unintentionally hilarious way. This is also kind of the reason that Barry Burton became an internet legend, with such great lines as,
Just a moment.
So the only other thing really to bring up here is the soundtrack. Yeah? While it does suit the cheesy atmosphere of the game, the jazzy orchestral themes really don't do much to stick in my mind. Now for my final thoughts. I think it's pretty good. I mean, the game definitely shows its age, particularly in voice acting and controls, but aside from that, the story has a decently built mystery and the characters are a lot of fun to listen to. And the voice acting alone is reason enough to get this game. As for who I'd recommend this game for, it'd probably be for hardcore survival horror fans, because while I praise the living hell out of the game, its controls really aren't user-friendly to new players that want to get into survival horror games. It's a fun game that had a pretty huge impact on the way we look at zombies today, not to mention made the staples of the survival horror genre. So, I'm Skully, dudes, babes, and metalheads, catch you on the flip side.
My dreams are nightmares. How can I sleep? You got the gun against me. It won't leave me be looking for something that I can't see. And all I need, Lord, is you leave me alone. Oh, leave me
I don't know about you guys, but after this review, I'm feeling pretty hungry. A Jill sandwich?